In honor of Black History Month, we want to do a presentation. I am here honored and privileged to introduce my friend Phyllis Hayden, who grew up here in O'Fallon. She grew up on the hill here in O'Fallon at the corner of Sondren and Elm. Phyllis attended Assumption Church School until the 8th grade. She went to Fort Zumwalt High School after that, attended that with her brother Tommy until she graduated. She was also the daughter of Bill Hayden, who was a very well-liked and loved person here in O'Fallon. So as that goes, I want to introduce Phyllis. Tonight, Phyllis has captured the spirit of Sojourner Truth. Some of you might ask, who was Sojourner Truth? Let me tell you a little bit about this amazing lady. Sojourner Truth was an African-American abolitionist and a women's rights activist. Born into slavery in 1797 as one of 13 children of Elizabeth and James Bomfrey, who were African slaves. She was given the name Isabella Bomfrey. As a slave under the ownership of Dutch immigrant Colonel Johannes Hardenberg in Ulster County, New York, she only spoke Dutch until 9 years of age when she was sold from her parents to an Englishman, John Neely. The cost of the transaction was $100 and a herd of sheep. The extreme harshness of the treatment from both Dutch and English slave masters would be told many times by Sojourner Truth in her anti-slavery speeches across the nation. In 1815, when she was 18 years old, Sojourner fell in love with Robert, a slave from a neighboring plantation. This relationship was forbidden by both slave masters. By 1817, Sojourner had been sold to another slave master named John Dumont of New Paltz, New York. On this plantation, she was forced to marry an older slave named Thomas, with whom she had 4 children. In 1826, when the promised freedom by her owner, John Dumont, was reversed, she escaped his clutches and walked away to her freedom. While living in the home of Isaac and Maria von Wagons, Sojourner had a life-changing religious experience which led her to changing her slave name to Sojourner Truth. In 1843, at the age of 46, she joined the Progressive Friends, an organization established by the Quakers. Sojourner joined an abolitionist group after meeting Frederick Douglass, and she launched her career as an equal rights activist. Even though she never learned to read or write, Sojourner Truth began a lecture tour in 1851 that included a women's rights conference in Akron, Ohio, where she delivered her famous speech, "Ain't I a Woman?" In this speech, she challenged prevailing notions of racial and gender inferiority and inequality. Sojourner rose from her seat, just as Phyllis is doing right now, and spoke the following words before the audience. Phyllis?
Well, children, where there's so much racket, there must be something out of kilter. I think that twixt the Negroes of the South and the women of the North all talking about rights, the white man, he caught between a hawk and a buzzard. But what is all this here talking about? That man there say that women need to be helped into carriages and over mud puddles and had the best place everywhere. Well, sir, ain't nobody ever helped me into no carriage or over no mud puddle. And ain't I a woman? Look at me. Look at my arms. I've plowed, I've planted, and I've gathered in the barns, and no man could head me. And ain't I a woman? I could work as hard and eat as much as any man. Well, when I could get it, I could. Well, when I could get it. And ain't I a woman? I've borne 13 children, and I've seen most all sold into slavery. And when I cried, with my mother's grief. None but Jesus heard me. And ain't I a woman? Then they talk about this thing in the head. You know this thing in the head. What's this thing that they call it?
Intellect?
Yes, that's what they call it. Right. Intellect. Now, what's that got to do with Negro rights or women rights? If I got a little pint and you got a quart and you don't want me to have my little pint full, ain't that mean? Well, then that little man in black there, he say, women can't have as much rights as men because Christ weren't no woman. Well, where did Christ come from? He came from God and a woman. Ain't no man had nothing to do with him. God and a woman. If the first woman that God ever made was strong enough to turn this world upside down all by herself, then all of these women together ought to be able to turn it right side up again. And now that they's asking to do it, the men ought to let them. Well, sir, Sojourner ain't got nothing more to say, and I thank you.